Hi everyone, today I want to talk about foliage, like trees and plants and flowers and things inside Unreal Engine, and a little problem that I've run into with trees and foliage. So I'm a 3D artist and Unreal Engine 4 developer, and I've been working with Unreal Engine for a good few years now. And in the last couple of years I've worked on a couple of indie teams. And some of those indie teams have been making video games with open worlds, right? So like landscapes, and often those landscapes are or need to be filled with foliage and trees, right? And one of the big problems that I've run into, I've seen this problem occurring over and over again, is that my fellow developers like make these big worlds with landscapes and lots of foliage and trees, and as soon as you actually start playing the game, the frame rate drops to like below 60 FPS, or as soon as you go into that landscape, you start looking at the landscape with all the trees and the foliage everywhere, you get like really bad frame rates, right? And this is a real problem. This is a real problem for open world games. It's a real problem for games that use trees and foliage, right? And I think there's a lot of confusion out there, or misunderstanding, or lack of information about why trees and foliage are so expensive, right? And why the trees and the foliage are kind of dropping the frame rate for so many people's maps, right? So, and for a long time, I'd not known the answer to this question, and it'd been frustrating me as well. I was like, oh, we've got these beautiful landscapes with trees and stuff, but you play them and you got like 40, 50 FPS, and that's bad, right? Because you want your game to run above 60 frames per second all the time. So after a bit of digging, I've finally worked out why that's happening, okay? And the purpose of this tutorial is to show why foliage and trees can be expensive in terms of performance, and to show a workflow that I've figured out myself using Unreal Engine 4 and Blender 3D to fix this problem. Okay, so that's the purpose of this tutorial, is to sort of talk about the optimization issues with foliage, and also to share the technique that I've developed to fix that problem. Okay, so to cut a long story short, the reason why trees and foliage are causing performance problems in some people's games, okay, is because of something called overdraw, or I think it's quad overdraw. Okay, I might be wrong about that. Okay, something called overdraw. Overdraw occurs when you have transparent surfaces or materials, shaders, that use transparent surfaces. Okay, so the way that foliage is generally made in video games is that you have so for example, with a tree, you've got a tree trunk, right? And the tree trunk is opaque. It's just a normal opaque shader. But then the leaves, right, are made from billboards like planes, right, that have a masked material, which means that masked material means that like some parts of the material are opaque and other parts are transparent. Now what happens is that when you've got lots of transparent surfaces overlapping each other, you get this thing called overdraw, right? And this is very, very expensive for the renderer inside Unreal Engine 4 to render all of these overlapping transparent surfaces. Okay, so you can see we've got two trees here in this scene, okay, and they look pretty much identical. In fact, they are actually the same tree, right? They're the same tree. One of them, the one on the left is the original tree, and the one on the right is the one that I've optimized, okay, using the technique that I'm about to explore in this video. Okay, so in order to understand this, let's take a look at the shader complexity in optimization view mode shader complexity. Okay, oh, I've got it wrong. It's the wrong way round. Okay, so actually, it's actually the one on the sorry, the one on the left is the original tree. Right. The one on the left is the original tree, and the one on the right is the one that I've optimized. Okay. Right, there we go. Now, what you can see, right, is that the original tree has lots of white, lots of like really white and deep pink colours. And as you can see, the shader complexity shows that this is bad, right? The shader optimization view mode, shader complexity, and Unreal Engine 4 shows this is bad, right? And then we've got a tree on the right, which is the one that I've optimized. And basically what I've done is I've culled all, or not all, but a lot of the transparent geometry, okay? And this might seem like a small thing, like you might not see a big difference between these two trees, okay? But actually it really is a big deal. It's really, really important for you to optimize your trees and foliage, okay? So in order to demonstrate this, I just want to give you a little demonstration, okay? So once again, this is the one on the left is the original tree, the one on the right is the one I've optimized. Now over here in the map, right, I've got a scene where on the left, once again, is the original trees, and then on the right is the ones that I've optimized, okay? And we can take a look at them in terms of shader complexity. Okay. And as you can see, there's a lot of pink and a lot of white over here, and there's much less pink and much less white over on this side, okay? So I'm just going to play the game, okay? And I'm going to enable stat FPS by opening the console and typing stat FPS. And I'm getting 120 FPS when I look straight ahead. If I look over here at these guys, these trees, these are the original trees that have not been optimized, I'm getting 70-ish FPS, right? Those are the original trees. But if I look over here at these trees, I'm getting like nearly 100 FPS. Remember, these are the same trees, right? They look pretty much identical, like 99% identical, right? But the trees on the right are optimized, and the trees on the left are not. So we can go into shader complexity. You've got loads and loads of pink and white. On the other side, you've got much less, right? So using this technique, I'm using the technique that I'm about to show you. I'm saving literally 30 frames per second, right? Like that's a huge amount. Like 30 frames per second is a huge deal. Okay, so that's what the purpose of this tutorial is, and I hope that gives a really good explanation. I'm actually going to pause, so I've sort of given an explanation of what these tutorials are about, and in the next part, I'm actually going to walk you through taking a tree mesh or a foliage asset that's not been optimized, that has lots of overdraw, and show you a process using Blender 3D to optimize it. Okay, so there's the original trees on the left and the new trees on the right. And we're going to show you how to make the new trees. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful. Many thanks.